Happy Valentine's Day to you, all my wonderful friends. I have a video today for you that I'm going to share some of the past Valentines that Moosey and I have spent over the years, going way, way back, and some fairly recent ones. And I also am going to give you the history of Valentine's Day. And once and for all, if you don't know, you're going to find out who's responsible for all of this, all the beautiful flowers, the chocolate-covered strawberries, the beautiful cards, the sentiments of love, birds mating, and love in the air. You're going to find out where all this started. So stay tuned because I think you're going to enjoy this. And yes, here I am, all decked out in Valentine's true to form. Did you expect anything else from Nanny? I have to tell you, I've been doing some research on Valentine's Day. You know, you wonder why Valentine's Day is such a day of a commercial display of cards and fancy boxes of chocolates and candy. And of course, we all just love it, absolutely love it. But it would be nice if every other day was the same as a Valentine's Day. Now, I can remember many, many different ways over the years Moosey and I celebrated Valentine's Day. And my Moosey is sitting over there in Moosey's world, and he might be raising his eyebrows a little bit, wondering which ones I'm going to tell about right now. Is that right, Moose?
Oh, yeah.
Which one shall I tell?
Tell me about the romantic for tonight.
Oh, he wants to know what tonight's plan is. Well, let me tell you about just a few of them, all in fun. Of course, you do have to plan a romantic night. Now, one of the nights that I remember that turned out to be hysterical was one year when I saw advertised in a department store that's no longer there, and I can't even remember the name of it. Maybe it was Robinson's. Remember Robinson's department store? They advertised this little box of body paints. And I think, it was advertised in February and meant for Valentine's Day, I'm sure. Maybe if it was not, I assumed it might be a cute Valentine's present. So I saved it and planned a little Valentine's weekend. I remember this particular day. Of course, we had all 6 children by this point. We were living in our Red Barn Acre home. And it was pouring rain that weekend. And there were literally floods coming down the middle of our little tiny road. But Moosey and I had planned just a little night, one night, in a little nearby hotel. Just a night, just to have a little fun on our own. So I decided that this would be a night that we could bring our body paints, and I didn't tell him about these. So we got there, we had a lovely dinner somewhere in a little nearby restaurant. Honestly, the hotel was no more than 10 minutes away from the house. And we were a little bit worried about the rain, but it was okay. We did have older children, teenagers by this time. And so at one point when we got back in the room, I said, well, I have a little present. I have some cute little things that I think we could have some fun with. And he said, what are they? And I gave him the little present, and he looked at them first, and then he started laughing. And so we proceeded to open up these little jars of paint. Now, what you were supposed to do with them was, I guess, paint on each other's faces. I don't know where I'm going with this. You think I should continue this?
It's not on your faces, it's on your body.
Well, I know. I didn't want to say that, but anyway, it's out. These were paints that you were supposed to paint on your body. Well, we got into a tub, and we put the little jars on the side of the tub. I guess Moosey says it's okay. And we started to dip into them. Well, they turned out to be what, if you remember, finger paints that the kids used to have. And there was not much you could do with finger paints. You could draw funny faces, or you could draw some lines or whatever. And you either did it on paper, or sometimes the kids would start on some walls or wherever. Well, we started putting some funny paints here and some funny things other places, and we wound up in hysterics. It was not in the least romantic, but it gave us more belly laughs that Valentine's night than anything. And we always remember our romantic body paint night of Valentine's Day. In my mind, I had no idea what in heaven's name it would turn out to be. But that was one night. Now, many other nights, what we would do when we had all 6 children at home, we would celebrate with the children, a little celebration of some sort with them. I always would make Valentine's cookies, and of course the girls would always dress up pretty in their little dresses and their little cheeky hearts. We would have a nice Valentine's suppers, but every once in a while, the kids wanted to plan a special Valentine's supper for us. And we always would have these in our bedroom. In our bedroom was a nice big room that we did add on to the house after we had lived there a couple of years. And we had a table in there where we would have romantic dinners some nights when we just felt like we needed to maybe have a dinner alone. And the kids would join in that. And they would be our waiters, and they would love to bring the food in and serve the food. So many's a night we would have a little Valentine's night in there on our own. Then at one point, we lived in Las Vegas for almost 10 years at some point. And this was right before we retired. In fact, I taught school there for 10 years. And by this time, we were in, I don't know, in our 60s. Yes, it was in our 60s. And we had friends at that time, Jerry and Frank, good friends. And it happened to be that Jerry's birthday was on Valentine's Day. And we would go out with Frank and Jerry. They had what they called choir practice. Every Friday night we would meet at a local cute little restaurant up on the top floor of a hotel where the lights were pretty. You could see all of Las Vegas. And we would all have cocktails and then have dinner or something. Well, for several years, Frank and Jerry invited us to go out with them on Jerry's birthday, which was Valentine's night. And the first year I said, Bill, it's Valentine's night. And he said, I know, but, and Frank was his friend, by the way. So we did for several years on Valentine's go out with Frank and Jerry and have a dinner and celebrate Valentine's Day. And we called it, what, Moose?
St. Jerry's night.
I'm so glad he remembered that. We used to refer to that thereafter as St. Jerry's night, not St. Valentine's night. And there were some nights where I would get red votive candles and I would light them all over in the bedroom and, fun stuff like that. However, tonight, I'm sure Moosey will get some kind of a nice little Valentine's dessert. And, well, I already have my beautiful wreath. Right, Moose? Moosey has already fulfilled his Valentine's Day.
Have you shown a close-up of that?
I did, and I'm going to, I have a special close-up of it because you can't see how beautiful that wreath is because it's dark, but it is red and beautiful. And I think I told you in the last video that the flowers are made of a little curled wood shavings all put together in little roses. It's so beautiful. I will do a close-up of it. So those are some of my personal, those are some of our personal Valentines. Some very romantic, some very hilarious, and others just wonderful family nights. Now, I am going to tell you the history of Valentine's Day. Have you ever wondered about how all of this started? Before I do that, I absolutely want to share my outfit. Of course, my Valentine sweater, which I had last year, same sweater. I have my red silk, lily silk blouse on with the bow tie, which doesn't want to stay in a nice tie right now. But I did want to show you my necklace. This is a necklace of hearts, all different kinds of hearts, and keys to your heart. And it has a matching bracelet, which I don't have on, and two big heart earrings. And years and years and years ago, our children bought me this necklace, and and Moose didn't have anything to do with it. I don't know where they saw it. I remember Colleen was about 10. Mikey and Colleen were about 10 and 11, and the rest of them were teenagers, about, they must have been 15, 16, probably even up into their 20s. And they picked this out and gave this to me then. And I have absolutely loved it. And I think I told you a story once about Colleen wearing this necklace once when it was in the late 80s. And it was when I had the store, a retail shop, Romancing the Home. And we went to some kind of a book signing. And I think it was Mary Emmerling, who was a gal who wrote and drew beautiful pictures. But this one particular book was a big coffee table book all about hearts. And I wanted to see her because I loved her. And she also was a fan of turquoise and silver jewelry. She would wear that big, chunky jewelry. And so we went, and Colleen came, and I think Debbie and Margie, a few of the girls. And when we were in the line to get her book and have her sign it, she noticed Colleen's necklace. And the book was all about hearts, everything from jewelry to stones to sand. And she absolutely went crazy over the necklace. Colleen said, "Oh, it's my mom's." And she said, if I had seen that necklace, I would have taken a picture of it and put it in my book. So that's the story of my outfit. When our children were small, little girls, but even when they grew up in high school, college, they continued the tradition, and I'm going to tell you about it in a minute. And all my daughters, and even my son's daughters, all have put this same little cheeky heart on their little girls. And I'm going to tell you what we did. Now, I can't find my nail polishes in the other room, but what we did, and I'll put it on for you, was take a red nail polish. And before the girls would go to school in the morning when they were little, or even before school, or if it landed on a weekend, we never forgot our cheeky hearts. And I would put these little tiny hearts, just one, on their cheek, and off they went. Now, there were some years when they were told, oh no, they couldn't have the little cheeky heart there. But remember, it didn't harm them, by the way, at all. It was just a teeny tiny little heart. And some of them were told to take it off. But as life went on, they continued to have their little cheeky hearts. And every year, and I'm expecting a barrage of little children's pictures today from all my granddaughters and daughters. And I'm sure their little girls will all have their little hearts on. And by the way, here's my cheeky heart that I have on right now. I think it's that cheek, right? I'm going to tell you now a little bit about the history of St. Valentine's Day and why we celebrate it as a celebration of love, and who was St. Valentine. Well, it all started back in the 3rd century, where there were 2 or 3 different St. Valentines, and they were martyred. And for one reason or another, one of them fallen in love, and it was a secret affair. Now, whether she visited him in prison or what, I don't know the story behind that. But the story goes that he wrote love letters to her in secret. And this must have happened before he was put in prison. That's right. And the daughter's father found out and read these letters and threw him in prison, and he was eventually martyred and beheaded because of this. But the letters were signed "From your Valentine." Now, that was back in the 3rd century. Now, the other Saint Valentine, I can't remember his story, so there's a discrepancy in who was the Valentine who was responsible for all this. Well, this went on, and there was also a pagan spring festival, which was a festival celebrating the arrival of spring and nature and the mating of lovebirds and all kinds of birds. And it was a festival where men and women were there, everybody was naked, and they would dance. And then the idea was that men were to find their mate, and then fertility would begin, and that went on for days. I think that feast was called Lupercalia, and that somehow was on the 14th of February. And by the way, the day that St. Valentine was martyred was also supposedly February 14th. Now, this is the dark side of Valentine's Day. It gets a little better. Now, also, back in the early Roman days, the Emperor Claudius II, who was at that time involved in war, believed that soldiers were better soldiers when they were single and not married. So he forbid all soldiers to marry. So, however, there was another Saint Valentine at this time who continued to perform marriages in secret, even though Claudius had outlawed marriage. And eventually the emperor found out about it, and he was beheaded. And I believe that was on February 14th. So we have some discrepancies of different Valentines, but they were all very much involved with love and February 14th. Now, as we went on, we came to the Middle Ages. And at that time, we had Geoffrey Chaucer, who was a very famous English poet. And one of his poems that was called Parliament of Fowls, and it was spelled in Old English, Foules. At first, when I was trying to translate them, I thought it meant fools, but it was fowls, meaning feathered friends, birds, Fowls. So I was wondering whether he was writing this poem, which was a poem of love and his dreams of what love would be. And I was wondering if he was thinking that lovers were fools, but no, he was referring to birds once again, and the beautiful mating of birds in spring. And he does mention Valentine's Day. And I believe he was the first English poet to actually refer to Saint Valentine's Day in honor of those guys centuries before. So now we get to Shakespeare, and Shakespeare has mentioned St. Valentine's Day several times. And then by the 18th century, 17th century, there were companies that were actually making beautiful Valentine's Day cards out of real lace and hearts, and Cupid started to come into the story with hearts. And eventually in 1900, I believe, Hallmark started printing their Valentines for the first time, and you know where it's gone since then. So at this point, I remember when we lived in Scotland back in the late 60s, early 70s, our first 4 children were young. And one of the hobbies of little girls at that time was trading what they called scraps. Now, a lot of you English ladies will remember this, because scraps, when I was a little girl, we used to trade cards. And they were cards with all sorts of beautiful pictures on the other side. And we'd have shoe boxes that we would sort our cards. But in England and Scotland and Ireland and Wales, I presume, maybe other places in Europe, they would trade scraps. And I think Debbie still might have some of her scrap collection. And they were cupids, and a lot of them were cards and angels and fairies. A lot of them had to do with love, but all very Victorian. And that was what little girls did in those days. So to end the story, the gross and the romantic story of Valentine's Day, today I read that 145 million Valentine's cards are bought and sent and given to lovers on Valentine's Day. So, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. So, to all of you, my friends, whom Moosey and I love very much, we hope that you all will spend this day thinking of all the friends that you love and have loved over the years. And I hope that with your special one, if you have one, that you do something fun today. Buy some flowers, pick some flowers from your own garden, bake something delicious with strawberries or cherries or something red in it, and enjoy the evening. We love you all. Thank you so much for commenting and subscribing. Have a lovely day. Bye for now. God bless us all.